What is up, Scrub fam? I am back with a video. Today I'm going to be going over the new Set 7 decks. First one I'm going to be going over is a couple of initial brews I've been doing with the new hit leader, so stay tuned for that. Before I get started, let me give a shout out to Shinron's Lair, the competitive team, as well as 3XG Productions, the people that work on the cast to help produce content on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, as well as help support you, the community. Just so you guys know, as we move forward with the channel, there's going to be a lot of things going on that's new. It's going to be giving you a lot more content. It's going to be not only myself, but Richard Zapp, Pat O'Neill, Frisco Foz, Jose Mercado, Marcus Cantarsi, and other members of the team that are going to be pitching on the YouTube channel to make sure that you get all the content you need as much as you want all the time, so you have access to the best minds in the game consistently. Not only that, be sure to check out the Patreon if you're looking to support the channel and you're looking to support the content efforts that we make. We provide content on a daily basis for you guys on the Patreon, as well as if you want to join, get access to our Discord, you get to work with not only the greatest minds, but also a great community of 300, almost 400 plus people that all are just focused on the same goal of getting better together. And then not only that, you have access to the deck doctors and the monthly training camps if you're looking to improve your game. But anyway, let me go ahead and jump straight into the decks, because that is what you're here for. So the first thing we're going to work on is the blue-yellow hit deck. So this deck itself is going to be really tempo oriented, and when I say that, you're going to be looking to put pressure on the opponent in the early turns. You're going to be looking to kind of stifle them as throughout the course of the game with the different effects that the hit leader as well as the cards in the deck kind of generate on their own. So hit himself, on his front side, he has a activate main, choose one life out of your hand, then you can choose one universe 6 that's blue or yellow and play it. So this combos really well with the one drops that we have in the deck, which is the bright side about playing the blue yellow, is that you get access to 12 different one drops that you can play for free, which is exactly what you want. And then your awaken is going to be when you reach 4 or less life, you can untap one, draw one, and then on your backside, when you attack, you draw a card. And then the auto, if your opponent were to flip over, you basically get to flip over from their unawakened side to their awakened side. You get to take a Universe 6 card that costs 3 or less and play it. And then you have your activate main once per turn. You can choose one card, place it in your drop area, and then play a Universe 6 card that costs 2 or less from your hand. And so that, again, allows you to replay, rebuy some of the things in which this deck doesn't take advantage of that effect as much, but the next deck I show you guys will. So let's go ahead and jump into the tech slots. So 4 Senzu Beans, 4 Time Magic, 2 Planet Vegetas, 2 Mutaitos. 4 Senzu Bean, since you're playing blue, you have no reason not to play Senzu Bean. 4 Time Magic, mostly because I like the access to the free negate, since this deck does put cards in the drop area because it has to combo a lot, as well as the different effects that kind of trigger that. You're going to want you have access to Sparking, and so Time Magic works since it's free. But you will see in the next deck I do the negate split a little bit differently, and you can see why, and you can apply that to this deck as well. You have Planet Vegeta, so this here is just going to work with a lot of different cards in the deck, so searching out your Caulifla, your Kale, as well as stuff like your Kefla that you can have, which is going to be a key piece to locking your opponent out. And then, of course, you have Mutaito, which is going to be great not only right now, but in the sets going forward, because there's a lot of different large battle cards that get cheated out. So this card kind of helps counter that. The next thing is going to be focusing on just like the different key parts of the deck. So 4 Kale, Timid Sister, 4 Kaba, 1 drop, as well as 4 Caulifla. So Caulifla 1 drop is going to be, Caulifla and Kale are going to be some of your most aggressive plays, especially if you're on the draw. You basically get to go, charge, and then you can play one of these for free with your ability by taking a life, and then you can swing with your leader, and then you can combo on top of it either the Caulifla or the Kale 4 drop. And then if you do that, the Caulifla has a pretty powerful effect where you can choose one of your opponent's battle cards or energy and switch to rest mode, and then it's also a 20k double striker. So think about that, like turn 1, the amount of pressure you get to put on, and then your opponent has to try and answer it on their following turn, which is pretty difficult. And then if you can, you really just want to kind of pressure and force that early flip. Next one is, of course, Kale, the 4 drop. It's going to be critical. Same thing, has the ability when you combo it on your turn, it comes into play on top of the 1 drop, and then it has an auto. Basically, you can KO one of the opponent's battle cards that they have in play, which is pretty strong, as well as like switching one to rest mode, I believe. And then you have your Kefla now, the Kefla that has Aegis. This card is actually pretty dope. When it has Union Patara for 1 yellow on top of blue, on top of your Kale and Caulifla, and then it has Aegis, where you can pitch the different cards to untap 2 of your energy during your opponent's turn, and then the auto basically states that whenever you activate Aegis, you tap down 3 of your opponent's energy. So you can just keep like time walking your opponent if they missequence their turns. The key part of the deck that kind of keeps the game more tempo oriented is going to be your hit package. So you have hit the 2-drop. The way this works is whenever you play this card from hand, your opponent sends one card in their hand to warp, and then you have the 5-drop that arrives on top of it. So what's cool about the 2-drop is that you can activate main, send it to warp, and I really like doing this. Sometimes you can just play multiple, keep sending the warp, keep bringing them back, so you can just kind of dodge removal here and there. And then, of course, the 5-drop, once it evolves on top, it flips your opponent back over to their unawakened side, and then it's insane. So if it's your opponent back under the unawakened side, it's a 20k dual attacker, and then it has an activate main. You can choose one of your opponent's battle cards, send it to their negate its skill, send it to their warp, and then it doesn't come back until the end of the opponent's next turn, and it comes back in rest mode. So the card itself is just insane. So if you ever need to get a threat off the board, so say your opponent has like an 8-drop Broly, you know, if you're not worried about the secret rare or whatever, you can just send it to their warp. You know, they bring it back at the end of the next turn, and then they never really get to actually keep it because the hit just kind of keeps staying out there, which is pretty wild. Or just your opponent just has any threat, like, or any card that you just don't want them to be able to attack with, or just if you want to get rid of combo fodder, blockers, etc., the card is just pretty devastating once it comes down, especially if you can get multiple of these guys, because they're just dual attackers, and they just really grind the opponent out. So this deck on the draw is dangerous, but on the play it's even more dangerous, because the more faster it gets to apply pressure, flip your opponent's leader back over, you know, the harder it's going to be for your opponent to ever come back. We're doing a 2-2 split with our super combos, 2 Pure Hearted and then 2 Batamo. With the Pure Hearted, you can tutor off a planet, so I really like it, and this leader gets down to 4 life relatively quickly, so it's not an issue. And then we have 4 Kefla, Peak of Perfection. This card is great. When you combo it on your opponent's turn, you get to tap down one of their energy, which is awesome. Love this card. And then, not only that, you have your 4 Kabas, which I talked about before, 4 Cauliflas, 4 Kale 1-drops, and all these do something. So the Kaba will draw a card when it comes into play. The Caulifla will look at the top X cards and then be able to get a Universe 6 cards out of it, and the Kale gets a 1 from the drop. So all these cards kind of just like help filter, recycle back into each other, and then you just kind of can keep playing these threats over and over again, which helps, and then just helps generate a little bit more momentum for your deck. Because that's one thing that this deck like struggles with when I was testing the blue-yellow version, is you run out of cards pretty fast. A lot of your effects require you to just dump cards in, which is always just a difficult thing to do, especially in this format. So that's why this deck is much better sometimes on the draw, is because drawing that extra card is just really helpful. But on the play is definitely where it's going to thrive the most, because it can just get its stress down faster, pressure the opponent more, and then be able to get to the opponent to the point where you just keep resolving 5-drop hits over and over again. So deck itself seems pretty strong so far. I want to keep testing, but the one I'm more excited about, it's definitely a little bit more simple, but is the mono yellow version. Main reason why is because, you know, taking the things and, you know, that I've learned from the other list itself is the fact that you have a hard time generating cards in the deck. So if you go yellow, you can go ahead and play Master Roshi and Shin, which you're already comfortable with doing. These can draw you some extra cards like you want to do, and then at the end of the day, you also have the ability to free play your stuff like we talked about. So free play your Caulifla, evolve into your 4-drop Caulifla from attacking, and then this deck also gets to do a couple more things since it's playing mostly yellow. You now have Kaba, the 2-drop Kaba with the Revenge and Blocker, which takes advantage of your awakened ability now. So you awaken, and then now you can discard a card. You can play this Revenge Blocker for free, pass turn to your opponent. Everything's square, you're good to go. And then, of course, you still get to open up more slots by playing mono yellow. You can now play an Overwhelm card, which I really like Fu the Dark Banisher, because if your plan is going to be to get your opponent to flip over with 5-drop hit, and then you want to just pressure them with Fu Dark Banisher right afterwards, the opponent's going to have a really hard time keeping up, and I really like having that sort of strategy in the deck itself. The only multicolor card that we play is just the 4-drop Kefla, again, because it's just tapping your opponent's energy down on their turn. It's just incredibly good. You know, so if they ever miss sequence, if they ever don't use their energy efficiently, you can tap them out and then just make things really difficult for them on your turn. The negates, like I told you, I split them up a little bit more. So we're doing 2 Time Magic, 1 Flying Nimbus, and 1 Restrain. So Time Magic, again, I really like free. So anytime you can activate Sparking, this card's great. 1 Flying Nimbus, just because it's tech. You know, there's going to be a lot of go wide strategies as we move forward into this next format stuff, especially stuff like Assemble the Squad. And then Restrain. This is just because it's a negate that is not only good once, but it's reusable. So you get to play it again from your drop area, so you just get to get more equity out of the card itself. So basically, you have more negates, you know, that your opponent has to think about, play around. So I just like doing a little bit of a split. And I'm excited to see how everyone does their negate splits moving forward, especially as we have these new negates that are activating out of the drop. But additionally, the deck is very similar to the blue deck itself, except it's going to take advantage more of the certain things. And then I really wanted to put a draw into the engine of the deck, which I honestly think that is what the blue version of the deck was missing the absolute most, was being able to generate the additional cards to help keep pace. Because when you're using your front side effect, if you're choosing one card life in your hand, and say you play the Caulifla 1-drop and you whiff on that, it just feels really bad. And so having something like the Shin Roshi engine, so you might be a little bit slower out the gate, but you're going to be able to start generating card advantage for the long haul, and especially for the mid-game, late game, and you're still going to be on plan when it comes to your hits. Because your hit, you get to play on 2 energy, which isn't a big deal at all. You don't have to worry about your opponent's removal, because it's going to come back at the start of your next main phase, and then you can get your opponent flipped back over. So you can basically get your opponent flipped back over in time before they can start deploying threats safely. And then, so I just feel like this deck's going to have a better start. But in general, I'm definitely looking forward to spending more time on these decks. Going to be playtesting these a lot, because I just want to see how far you can push the archetype. I've even thought about doing something with like Haida Mastery and Path to Greatness with hit, and then also still playing the hit stuff in the deck. And basically, the reason why is because, if you can just out-tempo your opponent so much and you just have like a clear end game, you're going to be able to win the game relatively easily. So I really, really like where this deck and this archetype goes and how it feels. So we'll see how testing goes, and of course I will always keep you guys updated on the list as they take shape. But this is definitely week 1 of testing, and these decks will adapt and change over time. Definitely not even close to what I would have as a final build. I just really want to try and test out as many cards as possible. That's something that I always do in my process. Is I really just, when a new set drops, I want to play as many new cards as I possibly can to get a feel for them. Like my very first build of the blue-yellow deck was playing like the Champa and the Vados, and more of the blue-yellow cards, and I just found myself like never being able to play those cards, and none of them were efficient enough. So that's something you'll start to notice really soon, is like how efficient are the cards am I playing? Can I take time to play X card? Can I take a turn off? Can I combo right here to be able to access a rival to get this into play? Like, there's a lot of factors that'll play into how good a card actually is. To be honest, if a card doesn't pay you right away, if a card requires too much card cost, like any of the cards that are saying, like, when you play this card, place 1 card in your hand and go to the drop area, if you think about it, you're technically minusing 2 cards from your hand. Like, yeah, you're getting board presence, but that card's coming down, and if that card isn't a card that can trade for 1 card from your opponent, it is technically a -2 from you. So just think about that stuff as you move forward building your decks. Always share your list as well. Like, any changes that you want to make, or any changes you do make, or your own initial list, share them. Because that's how these decks get better over time, is just having access to all that information and everyone working together on these brews, because that's how we end up getting stuff that ends up being format defining and just creates a much better metagame than what we had before. So I appreciate your feedback, thoughts. I know that some people will think that these decks are bad. That's just the way the world works. I'm not the best there is. I just try and do what I can. So I look forward to seeing what your responses are and how we can tune these lists. I'm excited to see Hit back into the format, because he was in set 1 for like a day when people didn't even know how to play the game. So now I'm glad he's back. So anyways, thank you guys so much for everything. Thank you so much for your support. Again, be sure to check out shenrunslayer.com to be able to do all your deck building. That's where these decks were built. They upload to Octagon relatively easily with no issues. Now all the files work, everything transfers over, everything just feels great. Now you have a new sorting system on Shenron's Layer to make your deck building easier. And then of course, if you're looking for content on a daily basis that's more than just a YouTube video, that's focused more so on strategy, and not only just how to improve in the game, but how to improve different aspects of traveling, life, etc. Check out the Patreon. It's got all the information there. Great group of guys. So anyways, thank you guys again so much for everything. Have a great night. Okay. Bye!